Hello students and welcome back to another video. In this video we will start the past paper of NET and we will discuss question paper number 1. So let's start with question 1, which says that Miss Watson termed Hawk's behavior dash because in her opinion nothing could excuse his deliberate discard of her commands. And we have 5 options: A. Devious, B. Intolerant, C. Irrevocable, D. Indefensible, and E. Boisterous. So we have to find the correct answer. Now first we have devious. And devious means dishonest. This does not fit here because we are talking about disregarding commands and not lying or trickery. Then we have intolerant, and intolerant means not accepting. So that also does not fit because this does not describe the actions of that person. Then we have irrevocable, and irrevocable means something that can't be undone, means you cannot reverse it. But we are talking about behavior over here and not an action. Then we have indefensible. Indefensible means something that can't be defended, and that fits our sentence because it means that something that cannot be justified, because we are talking about nothing could excuse. It means that it cannot be justified, it cannot be defended. So option D would be the correct option. And boisterous, it means loud or rowdy, and that also does not align with our sentence. So option D is the best option. Next, then we have question 2. Either the surfing at Maui is dash or I went there on an off day. Consistent, thrilling, invigorating, overrated, and scenic. Okay, so consistent means something that is predictable, but the speaker is actually suggesting some kind of unreliability. So consistent cannot be the option. Then we have thrilling. Thrilling means something that is enjoyable or something that is positive, right? But in the sentence we are not talking about anything positive, so option B also cannot be correct. Then we have invigorating, and invigorating does not also match the meaning of our sentence, so it is also not correct. Then we have overrated. Overrated means something isn't as good as people say, and that seems correct, and he is expressing his disappointment that it felt like it was an off day, means that he is disappointed. So overrated would be the best option. And cynic cannot be correct because it means beautiful, that is also positive, and over here we are talking about disappointment. So option D is the best option. Next, your dash remarks spoil the effect of your speech. Try not to stray from your subject. Over here option A is innocuous, and innocuous means harmless, and it cannot be correct because we are talking about spoil, which means that it is something negative, but harmless is something that is positive, so it cannot be correct. Then we have B, digressive. Digressive means to go off the topic, means to go off something. So it means that you deviate from the main topic, and that can be considered correct. Then we have derogatory, and derogatory means insulting. But the sentence does not suggest any insult because we are talking about try not to stray from the subject. Okay, then we have persistent, and persistent means to continue without stopping. So that also does not match the meaning of our sentence. Then we have enigmatic, and enigmatic means mysterious. So this is also a confusing option, but in the context of the sentence, our best option is option B, digressive. Next, we need both ornament and implement in our society. We need the artist and the dash. Now, ornament matches with artist and implement will match with something over here. So let's focus on the options. We have A, beautician. Beautician works at a place of beauty and they create beauty. So that cannot be matched with implement because over here we are talking about something that is more practical. Then we have writer. He creates literature and that is also not something practical. Then we have politician, and politician is someone who does politics, so it can also not be correct. Then we have artisan, and artisan is someone who creates what things that are useful and things that are beautiful. So yes, this can be considered correct. Then we have model, and models are also referred to beauty, so this can also not be correct, which means that option D is the best option. Next, when such dash remarks are circulated, we can only blame and despise those who produce them. Okay, so this sentence suggests that there is something negative over here. Okay, so option A is adulatory. Adulatory means full of praise. That cannot be correct. Then we have chance. Chance refers to something that is random and that does not fit the meaning of our sentence. Then we have reprehensible. Reprehensible means something that deserves blame and that does fit the meaning of our sentence. Then we have redundant, and redundant means something that is repeating. So the best option over here is option C, reprehensible. Next, the stereotypical image of masculinity assumes that weeping is dash unmanly behavior and not simply a human reaction which may be dashed by either sex. A, inexplicably repented. Okay, excessively discerned, essentially defined, and inherently adopted. Now, option A has two words, inexplicably and repented. It means without reason, and that does not match the meaning of our sentence. Then we have excessively, which means too much. That also does not match our sentence. Then we have essentially, that means important. That is also not related with our sentence. Then we have inherently, which means natural. That somehow does fit the meaning of our sentence. Okay, so option A, B, and C cannot be correct. And adopted over here means that taken up. And this does fit the sentence that the stereotypical image of masculinity assumes that weeping is inherently unmanly behavior and not simply a human reaction which may be adopted by either sex. That seems correct. So option D is the best option. Now we have analogies and we have to find the correct analogy related to these five options. We have fragile and break. Fragile means something that is weak and break, means to break. So the relation between two is that fragile things are easy to break. Okay, now let's move on to the options. We have vital. Vital means important. and that does not relate with destroy because we do not destroy important things. Then we have hostile, and hostile means dangerous, and that does not relate to invite, so it is also not correct. Then we have vivid. Vivid means clear, and that is not related with growth in any way. And then we have flexible, which means things that can be easily moved or reformed, and that does relate with bent because flexible things can easily be bent, so this can be correct. Then we have fertile and smell. These two are also not related, so option D is the best option. Next, teller and bank. Okay, so teller is someone who counts money where? At a bank. So teller is a person who works at a bank and he counts the money. And then we have artist and museum. So artist is someone who creates art, and museum is a place where art is displayed, but an artist does not work at a museum, so it cannot be correct. Then we have cashier and check. So this is also not correct because cashier actually works at some shop or a restaurant, so it is also not correct. Then we have waiter and a restaurant. This does seem correct because a waiter is a person who works at a restaurant. Then we have borrower and loan. So borrower is someone who takes money, and loan is something that is given to the borrower, but it is not related to a teller and a bank, so it can also not be correct. Then we have mourner and funeral. So mourner is a person who cries, and it is a person who attends the funeral, but the mourner does not work at the place of the funeral, so it is also not correct, which means that option C is the correct option. Next, inning and baseball. So inning is a unit of a play in baseball. Now we have to look the similarity between the options, just as the question has similarity between inning and baseball. Now round is a part of boxing, but it is not as same as an inning and a baseball, so it is not correct. Then we have a puck and hockey. So puck is something that is used in hockey, but it is not related like an inning is related to baseball. So it is also not correct. Then we have touchdown and football. So touchdown is a score in a football, but it is not related in the way inning and baseball are related. Then we have serve and tennis. So serve is the first shot of the tennis that does match the inning and the baseball relation, so this can be correct. Then we have outing and hiking. These are essentially the same things, but they also not match our question, so this is also not correct, which means option D is the best option. Next, we have degree and temperature. So degree is a unit and it is used to measure temperature. Now we have ounce and weight. So ounce is also a unit that is used to measure weight, so this can be correct. Then we have fathom and volume. A fathom measures depth. It does not measure volume, so it cannot be correct. Then we have mass and energy. Mass and energy are related by E equals mc square, but this does not mean that they are measured as a unit, so this is also not correct. Then we have time and length. These are also independent physical quantities and not units of each other. Then we have light and heat. These are also forms of energy, but they are not related as units. So we have option A, that is the correct option. Next, pick and guitar. So pick is a small triangular shaped device that is used to play a guitar. So we can also say that pick is a tool that is used to play an instrument. So let's find the same relationship. Okay, so we have peg and ukulele that are not related in this kind of relationship. Then we have string and banjo. So string is a part of this instrument, but it is not used as a tool, so this can also not be correct. Then we have pipe and organ. So pipes are also part of an organ, but they are not a tool. So this can also not be correct. Then we have a bow and a violin. So a violin is like a guitar and a bow is a kind of stick that is used to play the violin. So this can be considered correct. Then we have head and tambourine, that also does not satisfy this relationship. It means option D is the best option. Okay, so we have a word over here and we have to find its antonym. Now let's look at the options. We have weak. Okay, so omnipotent means something that is all powerful. Like we can say that God is omnipotent, and weak is, yes, it is the opposite of omnipotent, so this can be considered correct. Then we have strong, that is same as omnipotent, so this is not correct. And sour and safe are not related to omnipotent, which means option A is the best option. Next, nervous. Nervous means anxious, or it also means scared. Now let's look at an opposite meaning. So we have courageous. Courageous means brave, so it can be correct. Then we have puzzle, that is not related. Then we have bold. Bold also means something that is confident, so this can also be correct. Then we have trainee. Trainee means someone who is in the process of being trained, so it is not correct. Now bold and courageous are relative terms, but bold does not mean to be brave, whereas courageous means to be brave, that is the opposite of scared. So we can say that courageous is the best option. Next, we have notorious. We have notorious. Notorious means something that is famous but in a bad way. Now let's look at opposite meanings that would have meaning that someone is famous in a good way. We have renowned. Renowned means famous but in a good way. So this can be correct. Then we have invincible, something that can't be destroyed. So this does not match our word, so it is not correct. Inactive means something that is not active, so it can also not be correct. Fashionable means something that is popular or something that is accepted, but that does not match notorious, which means that option A is the best option. Next, nocturnal. Nocturnal means something that works at night, and that term is usually used for animals like owls or bats because they are active at night. Then we have patrolling. That means to check an area by walking, but that is also not correct. Then we have daily. Daily means during the day. That can be correct. Then we have harsh, which means difficult. This does not match our meaning. Then we have marauding. It means something that is mischief, and that also does not match our meaning, so option B is the best option. Next we have obdurate, and obdurate means someone that is stubborn or inflexible, meaning not flexible. So now let's look at options. We have fleeting, that means something that runs away and that is not related. Then we have finite, that means something that ends, that is also not related. Then we have yielding, that means giving up, and that does relate because we have stubborn or inflexible, that means something that does not move from its point, whereas we have yielding, that means something that gives up. And then we have permanent, which means inflexible, so it is actually a synonym, and the best option is option C, yielding. Next, okay, so we have a paragraph, and first I'll read the questions. The writer argues that for real happiness, more than one hobbies are preferable, 2 or 3 hobbies are essential, hobbies are quite important, and hobbies should be interesting. Next, the phrase ought to in the first sentence suggests liking, likelihood, compulsion, and preference. Then the words this or that in the second sentence refer to hobbies, topics, daily work, and none of the above. Then select the choice closest in meaning to the word hardly in the last sentence. Rarely, never, infrequently, and scarcely. Okay, now let's read the passage. To be happy and really safe, one ought to have at least 2 or 3 hobbies. Okay, we got our first answer. And they must all be real. It is no use starting late in life to say, I will take an interest in this or that. A man may acquire great knowledge of topics unconnected with his daily work and yet hardly get any benefit or relief. Okay, so topics unconnected. Okay, now let's look at the questions and try to answer them. We have the writer argues that for real happiness, more than one hobbies are preferable. Yes, that does seem correct. 2 or 3 hobbies are essential. Yes, that does seem correct. Hobbies are quite important. That does seem correct, and hobbies should be interesting. That was not mentioned, and this also was not mentioned, so we can ignore this one too. Now we have more than one hobbies or 2 or 3 hobbies. Let's look at the passage. We have at least 2 or 3 hobbies, so which means that option B is the correct option. Next we have the phrase ought to in the first sentence suggest ought to. Okay, we have ought to. This actually means should. So that would be the correct option or something similar to that. Okay. The phrase ought to in the first sentence suggests liking, likelihood, compulsion, or preference. Okay. So when we use should, it means that we must do it. Okay. So it refers to compulsion. So this would be the correct option. Then we have the words this or that in the second sentence refer to. Okay, so this is the second sentence. Over here it starts, it is no use starting late in life to say I will take an interest in this or that. So the topic of the sentence is hobbies. We are talking about hobbies in this whole paragraph. So this or that would also refer to hobbies. So hobbies would be the best option. Next, select the choice closest in meaning to the word hardly in the last sentence. Okay. So we have a man may acquire great knowledge of topics unconnected with his daily work and yet hardly get any benefit or relief. Okay. So this means that it is a good thing. But over here we're talking about get any benefit, that is negative. So hardly over here makes it negative. That means it is something bad. So when we look at the question, never is not correct because hardly does not mean never. It would have been impossible. That would suggest never. So this is not correct. We have rarely, this seems correct, and infrequently also does not match our meaning, and we have scarcely. Okay, so scarcely can also be correct, but in the context of the paragraph, scarcely would be the best option because rarely is also matched with infrequently. That also does not fit with our paragraph. So scarcely is the best option. And that marks the end of the 20th MCQ. And these were all the questions that were part of this past paper. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you.